I'm making a new theme song now.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does the original theme song go? Wait, that's
that's a
not
different
how
one.
it goes.
No, wait. I must do a lot of Pokemon videos.
All right.
Anyways.
3, 2, 1. What's up,
Wizard
guys?
in War talks back. God, it's been a while.
That is what we are.
Yes. We're talking back to a great wizard, Zach.
Yes.
Hey.
How's everybody doing?
Good. Alive, excited, happy to be here. I've got a microphone in my face, and I've got pretty cool people on my cameras. So I'm feeling great. How are you feeling, Zach?
I'm doing good. Technically, Justin asked you that question. I feel like you should bounce it back to him, but I'm glad that I got brought in too. So yeah, I'm feeling good. Justin,
don't tell me how to host. Listen, you have one job.
And he's doing
answer our questions.
He's doing a very good job. I appreciate him. I'm doing fine. I'm feeling good. I'm wondering if it's showing me while we're recording, because it's like going back and forth based on who's speaking, but it's not focusing on me. Although that might just be from my point of view.
Well, you look great from my perspective.
You do look pretty good. You've got a teepee in your shot. It looks like you have a very comfy living space.
We do have a very comfy living space. I'm very happy with it. So, anyways, this isn't about me. This is about the Wizard of War. It's about something bigger than us. It's about something bigger and more important than us. So we'll get straight into it.
This is episode 10 Talkback. So if you haven't listened to episodes 1 through 10, now's your chance to go do that, because it's the internet. So pause it, go back and watch those and listen to them, and then listen to this, because there's going to be spoilers.
It's good to know that time means nothing.
And it's not our 10th talk back. We have neglected doing them before. COVID kind of screwed us up. And I'm just we're getting back into it because we're getting close to the end here. We'd like to catch up and make sure that we're talking to the fans that have been supporting us and loving the series so much and been very patient with us.
Yeah, it's been a lot of just stuff, and a lot of big things happened as well between our talkbacks. Like many big things we've been working to reveal have been revealed, so we have a lot of splaining to do.
Yeah, but we'll just get right into it. Zach, who plays Peter Pettigrew, and
Dobby
the house elf. That is right. Man, I loved how I auditioned Dobby.
In the room at Alex's house, when we're all sitting in a circle reading through the script, like, all right, who wants to try Dobby? Go.
Yeah, everyone did different versions of Dobby, and
it was great.
Yeah, I just remember some people's faces like, I don't even want to try. Why am I doing this? So that was. I remember fun.
Zach was like coveting Dobby the whole time he was sitting and listening to other people. He was like ready, sizing up the competition. And then when he went, we're like, all right, well, it's Zach's now.
Yeah, that's how I audition in general.
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Look around the room, I decide who to destroy, and then I do.
You're such a good Peter Pettigrew.
So, Zach, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
What brought you into this world?
Okay, maybe not that far back at the beginning.
So when a mommy loves a daddy.
No, so like, when I saw your audition for Peter, I was super impressed, and I'm always fascinated in actors' stories, how they got into acting. I don't think I've ever asked you that. So, like, what was the spark or the motivation to start acting?
I actually come from a theater family. So my parents met doing old school summer stock. That's when they do a whole bunch of shows over summer, like back to back to back to back. And like, that's how they met. And then growing up, they were just, there's always theater involved. So I just kind of got thrown into acting on stage growing up. And then I was like, hey, I could also probably try it on camera. And so I live in LA and I auditioned, and we all met, and yada, yada, yada.
I love that you come from like a traveling troupe of theater performers for parents. You're like the best RPG background character.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool.
Yep. And I'd say maybe 2018 or so, started to get into comedy.
Yeah. It was around then, 2017, 2018. I don't actually remember specifically when.
Yeah. Stand-up comedy.
Yeah, stand-up. Yeah, I started doing stand-up. That was lucky too. It was kind of random. I'd always thought about it. I'd done an open mic night in college at one point, but it didn't really mean anything. But the way that happened was a friend of mine was like, hey, for my birthday, I want to do something cool. I want to do a roast. And like he was like picking people for the DS to roast him and the other people on it. And I was like, hey, because one person, I wasn't on the group initially, and one person backed out, and I said, hey, I know this is happening, and I kind of would like to give it a shot. And he's like, yeah, sure, we got room for another. I'd love to, because we're still pretty good friends. And he let me do it, and it felt good.
Yes, I love
it. And one of the other guys who is a comedian who was on the dais was like, hey, do you actually do comedy? And I was like, nah, not really. I like have a couple jokes written down. And he's like, I can hook you up with a guy and maybe get you a show. And I did, and you know, I just kept doing it from there.
And then he started headlining.
Yeah, no, I headline occasionally.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Not recently. There haven't been many shows.
Before COVID, for sure. Yeah, actually,
a lot of material gathering though during COVID.
There's rife a lot of with stuff material to think about.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Imagine there's going to be like a gauntlet of material to come out for once we're allowed to be around each other again.
The biggest problem is going to be how you have something that's different from everyone else, because everyone has a lot of the same thoughts about. And so I'm excited. I have a lot of stuff that I'm really looking forward to throwing out there and see how that goes. But
I can't wait to hear, man. You're headlining in my heart always.
Thanks, bud.
Always.
I can't wait to just be in front of people again without a mask indoors. That's a very exciting prospect. But until we get to that point, let's get right into Mr. Pettigrew himself. So kind of what was like your thought process about getting into the character, like for Snape and the Marauders and for Wizarding War?
I mean, I've talked about this a lot, and you've been there for a lot of them, for a lot of these convention things. But not everyone has heard these stories.
No, this is for the masses who aren't so lucky to meet us in person.
That's true.
Wow.
I don't know. I think Peter's such an interesting character because he is one of the single most disliked characters in the whole series. And not without reason. But like he's a Gryffindor. He comes from the stock of good guys. Traditionally. So I've had such a thrill getting to explore like the levels of like what makes someone turn against all of their friends and against everything that they have learned is right. Like what has to happen and what kind of like shift you have to have in your mind in order for that to make sense to you.
Very cool. So like with Peter from Snape and the Marauders, we've now had 10 or so episodes to kind of develop him along with everyone else. So like, where do you think Peter is up to this point, just before the big event that happens in episode 10 regarding Peter?
We're allowed to talk about spoilers, right?
We are, but like, I want to know like what you think Peter's growth has been up until the point of that big
St. Mungo's fight. Yeah.
This is this is before he gets met up with
the Dark Lord.
Yeah.
Before, I don't know. Am I allowed to say his name? Good.
Well, no, not really.
I don't know. I think he had like a lot of regret, particularly in the Snape and Marauders when he kind of starts to betray them a little, or it's kind of a snap decision when he does it then. And he's like, and I think for me, I was a lot of him thinking about like, why did I do that? Is that okay? Which he ultimately does decide. He's like, yeah, I get it. I understand why I did it. Survival is very important. And particularly as the stakes of the war are increasing around him, he's seeing more and more carnage happening to other people. And he's starting to see, he's like, well, what do I have to do so I can get through it? Because if I don't get through it, nothing I do matters either way.
I mean, the St. Mungo's fight is probably the biggest shock for everybody who's like thought about joining the war, and then they join, and then they see war for the first time, kind of up close and personal.
Yes. And it's almost in a way, meeting with Voldemort is convenient for him, because it's like, oh, I have an answer now. It's just being presented to me.
That's interesting. Okay. So he almost sees it as an opportunity.
In a sense, it's more like a path of least resistance for him.
Yes. Yeah, I could see that.
One of my favorite things about listening to your performance in that moment is sort of like the excitement and growth that comes at the beginning, right? When it's almost like you're in period and you stand up and you do the things because Voldemort is sort of like directing you to do it.
Yeah.
But it's really what happens after he's gone that's the most important part. And what I love is the elation in your voice, the excitement. Not that like you won, and not the excitement that your friends are safe, but the excitement that you had the power to do all of that stuff by yourself.
Absolutely.
By yourself. So I thought you played that super duper well.
Well, prior to that moment, he's certain he's going to die. He's certain. He's like, there's no two ways about it. I'm going to die screaming and crying here. And then he, in a way, his body at least, does something and prevents that. And he's thrilled that he knows that he has the ability to do it. And he has a sneaking suspicion that he has the guidance to push him forward and do something for himself for once, because he's always relying on others, and he did something he hates himself for all the time. I think
it's interesting that you say like he does something for himself when he totally didn't. He thinks he did. It's almost like Voldemort revealed this power within him because he's imperioing him to use these curses, but it's still his abilities that are causing this to him to even do these things. So it's definitely a kind of a masterclass in manipulation on Voldemort's part.
Yes, the way I saw it from Peter's perspective is that he this is what it would be like if he had full clarity of thought, if he wasn't clouded by his fear or his necessity to rely on others, and by not having his own mind at this moment, he still gets to experience what that would be like and how powerful he could be if he just wasn't afraid.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That.
And
I love that.
I just love seeing it from like the actor's perspective, because they're the ones who get into the character. And very oftentimes like the perspectives of the writers and the directors line up with the actors, but oftentimes almost just as much, there are new perspectives that the actors bring that I was like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, but you're absolutely right. And it contributed to the performance. And that's what I kind of love about directing, is finding these perspectives from actors and like really getting to know what they're thinking. And it's kind of what I look forward to as when we finally get back allowed to direct again, is like digging more into actors' perspectives as we're going along, and making sure that I understand where they're coming from. And because if I can understand that, then I can be like, oh, okay, cool, new perspective. Let's use that. Let's take advantage of that and try new things.
I think that's great. I think you do that really well. Just kind of as is, you're very in tune with what we're doing, especially on the day of recording. I feel like you can listen to us and what we're doing and really push us to go in ways that you didn't put down on paper, but you're like, oh, I like the way this is kind of blossoming, and I want to see that happen more.
Yeah, can we gush for a moment how good a director Justin is?
Yeah, all about the gushing. It's great. Like, especially with audio recording being as isolating as it usually is, just the way you've chosen to produce it with all of us in the same room together helps. I mean, to be able to see people's faces and play off of people's energy really comes across in the final product.
Well, to be fair, I'm really glad that we had that opportunity with Sphere Studios. But Morgana, the actress formerly known as Mick Ignis, basically got us access to that place and wanted to make sure, because she's a stage and screen actress as well, that we were still in the same place together. And I noticed that you and Zach and others were like, can we stand next to each other during this particular scene? Can we make sure we can see each other during this particular scene? So those instincts of like working in front of a camera and on stage were in play versus a normal voice actress. not to say normal, but like a person who's an experienced voice actress, like say Anna Brisbane, who played Bellatrix Lestrange. She didn't bring up those things. She's just like, put me in front of the mic, and I'm going to do my thing. And can I give you like 5 different variations of one line, which is a very typical voice actor thing to do, which I loved.
Yeah, and I think the series is helping us bridge the gap in both ways, which is nice, bringing both things to the table. We know one of the things, Zach, that I really enjoyed with Peter is his arc, and I think that you have made such a wonderful character arc for him. And we gave you kind of a tough job because in Severus Snape and the Marauders, you already see that moment of betrayal for a second, like you said, and yet we have to kind of now we have a chance to expound upon it, right, and kind of tell a story we want to tell. So now it's like you're almost doing that same moment again, but you have to justify it in a different way. And you kind of spoke to it before about how it was like a snap decision for Peter in Severus Snape and the Marauders, and this has become more of a full-fledged idea. So it was more like, how did you use particularly your comedy chops to build this arc in Peter? Like, how did you go from the betrayal that he does in Severus Snape and the Marauders to being hated by his friends, most specifically James? How did you build that into what happens at the end, like when you actually do turn, because you have a wonderful, wonderful place where we believe that you care for these people.
And this is, I because you mentioned in my comedy chops being part of it, this is kind of like delving into kind of a darker side of how people use comedy just conversationally in the world, is sometimes they say something that, oh, it's a joke, just to see where the boundary is, to see where they are allowed to, what they are allowed to get away with and what's not okay. And it doesn't really work in comedy, but it's something that in this project I was able to like kind of look into. And so it was just kind of, I had Peter just kind of playing with sincerity and what that meant to him and what that reactionary meant to the people he was talking to. And it kind of helped him set his mind as to what he was going to do next and what he was allowed to do next. And truly, I don't think Peter was insincere about wanting to be with his friends.
I agree. I think he totally was sincere, and he felt protected by them. He felt like they were friends, but I think in the back of his head, more importantly, he felt protected by them. And then St. Mungo's rips apart that notion, that mindset, even if he's not realizing it at the time because he's too busy panicking over whether or not he's going to get killed. And then Voldemort comes in and fashions him a brand new mindset.
Yes. And he comes to the realization that they can't protect him anymore. Like, they just don't have the ability. They're incredibly powerful. In school, they were incredibly powerful. But here, out in the real world, in the war, that's not enough. And he comes across something that is, and that's very, very tempting. And he takes it, which is not a good thing, but he lives longer than most of the Marauders.
Yeah, I think he was second to last to die by his own hand.
His own hand.
And he totally had it coming, but
it
works.
But he does survive the longest. That is very true.
Well,
second longest. Remus lives a little longer,
but
Remus,
not by much.
Not by much. No, Remus gets to the battle and he's killed by Bellatrix. What do you think Peter thinks about his relationship with his mother?
What a loaded question.
Yeah. Because the mom is the original person who's protecting me, and she's kind of the person that taught him how to be coddled and that you have to rely on someone's protection to do anything. She kind of and I love the way that you guys have written that character. That she's just overprotective, and that wormed into Peter's mind that that's how life works, is, for me at least, as Peter, for him, is that you have someone watching over you at all times, and they will keep you safe and they will keep you okay. And he starts to resent it because he has his friends now to do it, so he doesn't need his mom. And then he kind of glosses over the point in his life where he could do it for himself, and it goes on to something much, much worse.
That's true. He does gloss over taking care of himself. That's a great point.
It's interesting that Peter's mom is so resourceful. Like, right at the beginning of the series, she's ready to move to go to a safer place, like drop everything she knows and go somewhere else because it's safer and because she knows she'll be protected. And like that kind of cold calculation, I think is something Peter is very good at. And I think maybe he picked up from his mom.
I love the subtle dark side about Peter's mom.
Yeah.
She's a little bit creepy, but so sweet.
Denise pulls that out so well. Also,
Denise is great.
You guys
She's my
working
favorite
together
mom
is so
behind
fun.
my mom.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes her a little bit darker? I didn't intend her to be that way.
There's something, that's what I've always gotten about her performance, and I love it. There's something just a little bit ominous about it. I don't know, it's beautiful. I love it.
I totally feel that. It's like she's almost omnipresent when she asks about things or when she questions things. It's like, oh, she's aloof to certain things, but then she's like, you've lost too much weight. You don't eat enough. Are you sleeping? Like she's so overbearing in some aspects.
Okay, that's great.
I'm not blaming her for the decisions that Peter made, but the way she raised him definitely had a hand in how he informed his decisions.
I mean, I feel that like, shoot, 80 to 90% of a person's decisions comes from how they're raised.
Oh, absolutely.
Or how they're not raised. You know, there can be an argument for, you know, what the environment they're born into or just the genes they have, and that plays a small role. But the environment they're born into and how they're raised plays a huge role. And I tried to explore that a little bit more with Peter and James Potter, because those two characters I feel like didn't have much information around how they were raised. Neither did Remus, but I feel like the information around James is just non-existent. James Potter. So I saw an opportunity there with Fleamont and Euphemia, especially when information came out about them on Pottermore, which I think doesn't even exist anymore.
Really?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's gone. I'll double check, but I think it's gone.
This is what the viewers want: active Google searching.
Yeah. Oh no, they created it to they changed it to Wizarding World, so it kind of combines a few other things. Yeah. So anyways,
you probably can't say what it combines without getting this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to do like a real quick like double check, but anyways, a little bit of information came out about Fleamont and how he sort of resented his name because it's kind of a feminine name, and he got into a lot of duels. And I was like, oh, that totally is going to be that's going to move on to his son, where he's going to be very encouraging of making sure James stands up for himself, and maybe even has a preemptive attitude about threats. And I was like, oh my God, everything makes sense now. I got to make sure I add that in, even if it's a little bit. Like, you got into a fight. Oh, did you win?
Yeah. How did it go?
Yeah. So Garrett, how do you think James is progressing so far? Because like, we haven't done any recordings of up to episode 8, past episode 7, but in episode 8 had a massive change for him that hopefully I've been building up to, right? But what do you think was like? How do you think that change has been occurring, and what do you think of the major elements that really made his mind click?
I mean, James is like of two minds always. He wants to protect the people he loves, and he wants to be independent as well. You know, he wants to be strong enough to protect, but also strong enough not to be needed to be cared for, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I think he's always sort of had one foot in his kind of childish nature of, you know, the world is what I make of it, and I'll be fine. And when he learns about the dragon pox and all of that stuff, it's sort of a major disillusionment for him, because it's not something he can fight. You can't fight off a disease for somebody else. It's just not going to happen.
That's right.
And it puts him in this place of like, I have to do what I can do in my life to protect others, as opposed to relying on the world to work out for me. And I think him sort of sending that howler to Lily and saying like, it's not really about me anymore. It's not about me being the strongest or me being the most, you know, the hero. It's about people actually getting protected and people actually getting what they need. And I think that change happens in
SpaghettiOs
died.
Yeah, no.
Oh, did I go away? Oh, that's okay. I was rambling on about
It's okay.
Some sort of thing.
So
I can make that more concise anyways. Just ask me the question again.
Well, where you were last at is the last thing I heard was in regards to the letter.
Okay. I mean, okay, so in the howler he sends to Lily, he's basically saying, I don't have to be the hero anymore. I don't want to be the hero. I just want to make sure people are protected, whether I get whatever for it. And that's a big change for him, because James's pride is about standing up for yourself and standing up for somebody else, but it's also standing up and being seen when you're doing it. And this is very much not that. And I think that change happens for him when he finds out about his parents' disease, because like I said, he can't fight that. And it's, they don't have a choice. Like, they literally don't have a choice. No one can protect them. No one can save them. And that's basically what's happening to the Muggle community, to the world at this moment, is that there's nobody really there to save anybody. And if we're all looking out for ourselves and what we want, then nothing good is going to happen.
Sure. What do you think? What do you think went through James's mind after, he's getting all of these messages from different people, like Sirius saying we should fight for something bigger than us, and Lily rejecting any attempts at like amendment that he can, and then Marlene shows up, played by Ashley McKenna, who did a superbly amazing job.
Yeah,
huge shout out to her.
She crushed it.
As soon as she started talking in the audition in her Irish accent, first of all, I thought it was real. Second of all, it just was it was heart melting, but which is perfect for her little monologue. But what do you think was going through James's mind with her little story about her brother, which we made up, by the way, not canon?
I don't think people who are constantly on top in their friend groups think about how they look to people outside of their friend group, if that makes sense. You can be this larger than life person and not really understand how that affects other people until they tell you. And I think that was the first time that the other side of the coin was revealed to him by somebody else. And this sort of empathy for this kid that, looked up to him. He never even knew, but like, he affected so viscerally. I think that it's shame, it's a lot of like guilt. And I think it's a disillusioning. I mean, this whole series for James is just one disillusionment after another until he finally gains what he's looking for, which is the confidence to be the person and the ability to be someone who can be relied on by everybody, not just by some.
Right, for sure. And what do you think is kind of motivated his decision to start trusting Peter again?
I mean, Peter shows his worth. He shows up. I mean, the whole time we're basically dealing with Remus trying to leave for 6-7 episodes, the friend group trying to fall apart. And the constant is Peter's always there. He's always ready to be there. He volunteers when he really shouldn't. And I think overall that kind of wins James over. And then, hearing the stories of what happens at St. Mungo's is just like, it's almost like James knew that he had it in him and has been waiting for Peter to step up to the plate and do it himself. It's kind of like when you bully a younger sibling and you're like, I'm making you stronger because I'm being a dick to you now, and the world's going to be a huge, even worse dick to you later. So if you can't handle me now, you're going to not survive in the real world.
And that's why you should always bully your siblings. That's right.
That's not, well, obviously, yeah, it works out so well. It works out so well for James, doesn't it? He made a monster that eats him. But I think that's part of the reason why he picks on Peter so much, is he wants him to be strong enough. He knows that he's to take care of Peter. And he's like, Peter has to be strong enough to take care of himself. And by hearing what he did at St. Mungo's, when he does, that's just going to solidify, like, he showed up, he always shows up, and he finally found his own strength.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's get a little bit into like what's been going on since we last talked. I'm pretty sure it was like episode 7. So 8 was very much a character dump for the Marauders. And 9 was kind of like a Death Eaters episode. And we got to the point of where we revealed that Luther is a double agent.
Yeah, I gotta say, this has been so interesting to write and work out as an audio play because there are so many time jumps and location jumps, especially in episodes like 8 and 9, that we really had to flesh out, and it's been an interesting sort of making those
Yeah.
bridges.
That was definitely an experiment, especially episode 10 had to do time jumps. And it was more of a deliberate experiment on my part of like, I know I could do this visually, but could I do it in an audio space of like creating these time jumps between the two different meetings that happened? Because in the Order of the Phoenix meeting happens before the fight at St. Mungo's, which happens at the end of episode 9. And then the meeting that Luther happens after they've acquired the potion already, which happens after the fight at St. Mungo's.
Correct. So honestly, someone needs to go out and make like a timeline for us, like with color-coded lines.
Right. I was trying to unite them by having very specific lines and events happen in the fight. Like you hear Moody scream, "Ah, my leg, that's Moody, we have to get him." And making sure that those things lined up, and hopefully it worked. I got a couple of comments saying, "I don't know what's happening." And I'm like, that's fair. That it was.
But also we do, because we're doing this basically on our own with the free time that we have now. It's sort of like each episode takes a couple months or longer to come out. So when you wait 5-7 months after one episode and then you listen to another and you're like, wait, I need to go back and like catch up with what's happening. So when we release it all as one thing, which I think will be happening, it's gonna really run together.
So Zach, I had one little line in episode 7 where Luther is revealed to be part of the Death Eaters. This is before it's revealed to the audience that he's a double agent, and nobody but Dumbledore knows he's a double agent, not even the Order of the Phoenix. That's why I had him fight Moody. But anyways, he had a line where he says, "I can't believe that. He was our best teacher." So I just kind of would love for you to speculate why you, as Peter Pettigrew, and maybe others, came to really admire Luther.
I think what we've established, Luther is kind of all of the things that he's looking for in the various people he's followed throughout his life. He is like he has a parental air about him. I feel the way that he's played, at least, that kind of reminds him of his mother. He's strong. That reminds him of how the protection he gets from his friends. He's kind of like the whole package of what Peters is always looking to like align himself with. And to an extent, I'm sure that knowing about Luther's betrayal kind of hits him in a different way. He was like, "Oh, you can do that?"
Huh. Interesting.
Of course it does. Oh, what a good way to look at it. And absolutely, Peter would look at it that way. I was like, oh, that's an option. Okay.
Okay, cool.
I can do vegan curry.
I love that, because I am definitely setting up Luther to be an influence on Snape, just for different reasons. And if anybody hasn't figured it out by now, he's very much, now that we know he's a secret double agent, he's very like he's playing an influence on Snape's future.
Double agent.
Oh shoot, yeah, because Snape does that too.
Yeah.
No, come on. There's no connection. That's not a connection. Stupid theories. That's not a theory.
This is my in-depth theory on what's happening.
Oh man.
And of course, props to Bo for portraying him so
props to Bo for playing like two of the major, most memorable characters in our series and making them sound completely different.
Bo's one of the most talented voice actors that I have ever met.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Oh man.
And Fleamont.
He nails it.
Yeah, he totally nails it.
Bo is literally having a scene with himself in one of our episodes, and I'm like, it sounds great. So props to Bo for that, for sure.
That's another fun thing about the voice acting, is that people can play multiple roles, and I'm trying to make sure they don't talk against each other, but at some point it was somewhat inevitable.
Yeah,
he
has so many primary characters that
it just was going to happen. He's handled it like a champ. He's a pro.
Yeah.
I think James probably was drawn to I'm just going to answer this question because I was
go for it
as well.
please.
To Fruminter, because he's smart and he's resourceful and he's strong. I think all of those things James values. I mean, if you look at the Marauders that he's surrounded himself with, Sirius is fearless, Remus is smart, and Peter is resourceful, and like those are things that James values in himself. So the fact that it's all in one person, I think that's great.
Yeah, there's no real plan to like delve deeper into their relationship because I'm trying to make sure it sticks with Snape. But like Luther did teach James Potter and Sirius Black, Remus, and Peter, and I always wondered what those classes were like. That's kind of why I added that line in of Luther knowing about Snape's rivalry and probably was aware of Snape's humiliation in fifth year, and just not for giggles, but like because he knew he wanted to influence Snape in a positive way, he pitted him against James for a practice duel
to give him that shot.
Yeah, to give him a little bit of a booster, and make sure that Snape knew that Luther's the one who gave him that chance. So it adds an extra level of trust for him.
The ultimate chess player.
Yeah, that's why chapter 2 is called the Chess Master. And then my mom, who made the first portrait of Luther, was smart enough to give him a little chess piece as a accessory. Yeah, and the chess piece is a knight, and I'm like, yeah, he would totally be the knight.
Yep.
Making all kinds of funky moves and crossing people.
Yeah, taking your rook when you're not paying attention. Hate that.
Yeah.
Man. I'm excited to see where this goes. Zach, so what has been, I have a two-part question. First question is, what do you think before the fight at St. Mungo's was Peter's highest point, and why?
Within this story, obviously.
Yes.
Okay.
Or not. I mean, I'm open.
No, I don't think. Man, it's hard because everything sucked for him. I think he's because there's a point where he's in the story where I don't remember which episode it is, where he's trying to convince when he and Sirius try to convince Remus to come back, and I like the moment where he's making his own arguments for it, because it's one of the only times that he feels like he's trying for himself to like be supportive, and he's not like he's not relying on other people in that moment. And I think it's good for him just to kind of just flex that muscle a little bit and be like, I'm making a good argument here and I'm impassioned about it. And I think that's probably from I can think of at the moment, probably like his best moment.
I love that answer. That's not at all what I would have thought. I think that's a great answer. He's one of the guys at that moment. He's not a subordinate like member of the group. He's like one of the lead four.
Which I think has something to do with the fact that James is not around to push him down a little bit.
That's interesting. Yeah,
that is very interesting. Yeah. Oh man, James, what a dick.
Yeah, I know how that feels. I have felt like where I feel like I'm holding back my own potential because I'm around a person who I feel like not consciously but subconsciously is kind of pushing me down, and then I had to kind of distance myself from these people, because it's happened in different occasions throughout my life of I had to distance myself from these people, and it always felt somewhat liberating, and because I felt like I could make my own decisions without fear of judgment or fear of like reprisal. And I just became like, I grew when I got these people out of my life that I thought were mentors, and then that relationship changed, or I didn't want to live at home anymore, and once I got out, I was like, oh, I have to take care of myself, and I grew up from that point.
I think that is a great growing point for Peter. I never thought of that either, but probably one of the reasons why he betrays the Potter so handily is that.
Damn you and your internet connection. I didn't want to do any editing.
Sorry, bud.
There we go.
I'm back.
So you said one of the reasons why you think that Peter betrays James so handily
is that I think he realizes it's a toxic friendship. I think Voldemort helps him realize that he's in a toxic friendship, which is weird.
Yeah.
You know, like it is like for Peter, it is a pretty toxic relationship.
But Voldemort's a master manipulator. He would be able to say, oh, there is a legitimate flaw in here. And if I open that up for my purposes, you can feel good about doing a thing regardless of the fact that it's still bad.
Yeah. I love it.
That's great.
Garrett, what did you think was Peter's when he was at his best in the series?
Yeah. Oh, come on. This is gonna be the most self-centered answer. I
it
thought
was a leading question. Do it.
A self-centered answer. Gosh, no wonder I cast you as James Potter.
Boo. Play what you know, man. It was when, for me, it was when Peter stands up to go on the fight with St. Mungo's, and James is like, "All right," and he's like proud of him. When James is most proud of Peter, and it's like, "Yeah, come on, let's do it." I thought would be Peter's highest moment, being like accepted and one of the guys going out for a fight. But I like your answer a lot, and it's my answer is very much a James answer as well. It's like, oh, he got my approval. That's got to be top of his list.
Great casting, Justin. Really top of the line.
I think that Peter, maybe not his best moment, but like when he makes his first choice to go and find Remus, and he actually creates agency to bring the band back together.
Yeah.
I think that was especially when he had to tell his mom, "I'm sorry, I can't do this with you." I was like, this is a different Peter that is much more bold and much more like fitting of a true Gryffindor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so like, it breaks my heart, right? Because
I wanted it to be heartbreaking. I was like, there's more to this. There's more to Peter Pettigrew than
because he was a
what
Gryffindor.
We see in the books.
Yeah.
He was a Gryffindor, and he hesitated to kill Harry because he saw James in him.
Yeah.
So
he saw the good things of James in Harry, not all the crappy things.
Yeah, because I mean, they had a toxic relationship at times, but they still had a friendship.
Yeah.
Over years, and that's something you're gonna be nostalgic about.
And that's what I'm trying to push with James as well throughout this series, is that he had toxic aspects about him, and like the war was kind of aggravating those toxic aspects, especially in Snape and the Marauders. He's being the James that everybody in the fandom at least thinks he became, which on some level is true, but then Snape comes into it and his brain starts ticking, and we see the graphics of all the equations in front of him going like, oh, he's still the enemy, and there's a war on, and we're out of school, so I'm going to go back to old habits, which I knew worked well for me when it comes to fighting this guy. And then when it all blows up in his face, then I'm like, okay, now I get to play with his transition. I get to see how he truly grew and became this better person. But I don't want to get rid of these toxic aspects entirely. Some of those things in human beings, they stay with us. And as we grow, we learn to control them or put them to the side, but they never completely leave us. That's what makes us normal human beings,
I think one of the biggest things that James is going to go through is the fight at St. Mungo's, is its true first taste of a war zone where things are going wrong.
Right.
And also there, hearing the stories that Peter saved the day like he did, I think that is his worldview is shifting so much. A, he wasn't there, to help. B, Peter did a lot of the heavy lifting when James wasn't sure he could do that. I mean, that's a lot of your wrongs in one day.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be really good for him.
That's the only way I could justify a change happening so fast, is that he has such a dramatic traumatic experience that forces him to rethink. I was never on board with like saying, oh, he got better in 2 years and was made head boy. I'm like, first of all, that's coming from the perspective of his best friend. Second of all, he became head boy because Dumbledore was manipulating the situation. I was like, he and Lily became head boy and girl? That sounds like a little bit of a manipulative situation.
And there's maybe a prophecy. Who knows?
Yeah, and that's why I definitely had one of the Longbottoms mention it, because I was like, there's more to that than meets the eye. And I just want to throw that speculation in there.
But great. Yeah, I'm excited for James after this point. I think his parents getting the disease was that I didn't want to lose anyone kind of reveal for himself. And he was like, I don't want to lose anybody. I'm willing to do anything. Now I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after seeing the war and seeing what happened to Peter, I think he's not willing to underestimate anyone ever again.
Yeah.
And now he becomes the leader that he should be, one that takes in the whole situation and is caring and lifts people up instead of pushes people down for their own safety.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked. I think it's just great. I'm having a good time.
Well, I'm looking forward to recording the last of James, Peter, Remus, and Sirius. You guys have the bulk of the lines for episode 11. We just got to schedule it and get everybody on mics, and then we can get going with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, COVID made this thing so difficult. We would have finished recording back in like March of last year.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
Something happened March last year.
Something happened March of last year. I don't know, clowns or spaceships or something.
That's a little bit of both. I got one just because we can't record anymore at that space right now.
Yeah.
Zach, what was your favorite moment recording in the studio?
Ooh. There were a couple good ones. And they're weird. They make me seem like a masochist. You were yelling at me at one scene.
That sounds right.
I don't remember which the scene was, but I remember it was James yelling at Peter. And it just like emotionally felt good to do that scene, and also doing the scene, and we did it. I remember the takes we did a few times of when the Voldemort scene, where we had to like match the dialogue.
That was fun.
That was
super
super
fun.
cool. That was a super cool scene to do, and that's something that would have been real hard to do if we didn't do that in the space.
Yeah, it would have, because I basically kind of had to be like, and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 2 3 4 sectum sempra 1 2 3 4 sectum
Yeah, it was like,
now when people listen to that, they're just gonna hear you counting.
Man, yeah, no, a lot of weird things happen behind the scenes to get that stuff right, for sure.
So yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that again. We lost Sphere entirely, but that's okay, because we're even if it weren't for COVID, we'd still get this thing done, and we're just going to do it all from home now and do the best we can.
We still have the best sound editor.
We do. Yeah, actually, that was one of the reasons why I was holding out, is because his sound editing is amazing, but he loves the mics we were using at Sphere. And he was just like, try to use those mics. I'm like, okay, we'll wait and try, because quality is really, really important. But I told him, like, we can't wait any longer, man. Can we still do this? And he's like, yeah, I'll still make it great. But, I feel like the audience won't notice the difference, but he will.
Because he's going to have to sit there for an extra 9 hours being like, why does it sound like he's in a trash can?
Yeah.
Why does it sound like he's in a trash can?
Yeah, we're gonna have to like get you guys sound booths set up and be like, you got to be in a place where there's very little echo, and it's gonna be a chore, but we will get it done.
It's going to happen. Okay, just got to do it.
God, that Australian accent, man.
I started learning it like halfway through.
It shows up.
Great Wizarding War, and I've just ruined my English accent.
Yeah, you started doing it, and then I'm like, stop. This is not in Australia.
But isn't there that ending we talked about? No, you're right.
That's right. No, when the twist ending, the reason you never see Peter's mom again is she moves to New Zealand.
Yes. canon. We're gonna make that happen. She's already talked
Oh shoot!
about
I just gave away the end of the series.
Way to go, Zach. This is why we don't have you on very often.
I can imagine that she's like getting that nice badge or medal that Peter gets posthumously in the books, and then she's like, "I'm going to take this with his dying wish and go to New Zealand. I'm going to live next to a pedo colony." It's kind of funny that she has a low opinion of Australia when most people have in the Commonwealth community have a low opinion of New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, layered characters. That's what we're making.
Yeah, at least that's what I've read. I don't know if that's actually true. But the bloody Kiwis, that's all I know. Anyways,
that's all I know. I'm excited.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting the recording done and then getting episode 11 out there. Yeah. And then we're going to have a fun recording or screening party over Zoom. Or maybe we'll have the fucking...
Maybe in person, knock on wood.
Maybe we'll have our vaccinations and be able to do it.
But yeah, to all the people that are waiting, we appreciate it. We really do. And we are working as hard as we can with all of the restraints that we have in place.
Yeah.
But we don't give up. I mean, we didn't give up in the beginning and we won't give up now. So it's going to get done.
Nope. We're going to finish.
We don't quit on you.
Nope. Please don't you quit on me.
Oh no. What has happened to this recording?
I don't know.
What have you both done? I have been a consummate professional. Where's my dog? Where's my dog? I'm just kidding.
Didn't that dog make a cameo in our very first recording?
Yes, of course she did. She's adorable.
Didn't I almost flip the table?
Yeah. Yeah, but we had a lot of heavy / expensive equipment on the table, so thus it wasn't flipped.
That is true.
Oh, this is expensive.
All right, guys, I had a great time, and I look forward to talking again and recording and playing some D&D. And for everybody else, we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can with episode 11, and I'll keep you updated with lots of cool little behind-the-scenes things.
And keep sending us questions, and come onto our Patreon Discord and ask us questions. We love to respond and just talk about it. We spent a long time working on it. So ask, and you shall get answers if we can answer them.
Yeah, Prongs is always there, so you can count on him.
That's right.
All right, peace out, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.